All right, we are live. All right, guys, quadratic formula today. All right. The other day we solved these quadratics by factoring. All right, and we had done a lot of factoring stuff. All right. So why quadratic formula? Okay. The other day we saw problems like this. All right, x squared plus 2x plus 10 equals 0. We said, hey, to solve a quadratic by factoring, it had to be set equal to 0. All right. Now, watch this real quick. And just like we've always done, is there a GCF here better than 1? You've got a 1. You've got a 1 right here. You've got a 2 and a 10. GCF will never be larger than the smallest number. What's the smallest number? 1. There's no GCF here that's worth anything, okay? You've got an x only in 2 terms. There is no GCF here, so we would continue with first term, last sign. How would you break apart the x squared? What's the only way to break up x squared? What goes on the front end of these parentheses? X and x. Now, look at that last number, 10. Can we multiply to 10 and add, the last sign's a plus sign, and add to 2? Are there 2 numbers that would multiply to 10 and add to 2? We've got 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. Do 1 and 10 add to 2? Nope. Do 2 and 5 add to 2? Does it? Okay. Guys, this particular trinomial is unfactorable. You are not able to factor this. Okay? It is unfactorable. And in the past, do you guys remember if something wasn't factorable, what did we call it? Thank you. Well done. We call it prime. Okay? We call it prime. All right? Now, we cannot solve this by factoring. All right? So we have to rely on a different method. This is where quadratic formula comes in. All right? The quadratic formula, the nice thing about the quadratic formula, listen carefully. I'm going to use a word here. It always works. The quadratic formula always works. We're going to cover some methods for solving these quadratics. Factoring was one of them, okay? Guys, the quadratic formula always works, all right? So this is why we need the quadratic formula. If we get an expression that's unfactorable, we say, well, what do? Well, we can use the quadratic formula. Now, to use the quadratic formula, here's what we're going to need to know. Write that down right there. ax squared plus bx plus c. ax squared plus bx plus c. And as I have written up there, guys, this is the general form of a quadratic. The general form of a quadratic. All right? What's going to be important about this is we need to understand. You see that a value right there? That a always comes in front of x squared. The a value is always associated with the quadratic term, the squared term. Okay? We need to make that association. The a value always comes with the squared term. It's coefficient. There's that math lingo. Okay? Take a look at the next one. See that b? B always comes with the single variable. The b term, the b value, always comes with the single variable. And then the c term is always your constant number. It is the number that does not have a letter with it. Okay? It is of the utmost importance that we are able to identify A, B, and C correctly, because if you don't, using these in the formula will do us no good. It'll be wrong. Okay, so we have to be able to identify A, B, and C correctly. A always comes with the squared term, B always comes with the single x, and C is your constant term. Okay? Does everybody have that down? Next slide. Okay, so take a look at this first expression. And by the way, to use the quadratic formula, just like factoring, the equation must be set equal to 0. Okay? The equation must be set equal to 0 to use the quadratic formula, just like factoring. So, if you take a look at this first expression or this first equation, is it set equal to 0? Yes or no? It is. 3x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Okay? What's the value of A? What number up there would be the A? Okay, in that equation, what would be my A value? And you guys said what? 3. Your A is 3. What's your B? 4. Good. And what's your C? Perfect. -5. Okay? So when we look at these expressions, when we're trying to identify A, B, and C, guys, we have to know where to go get those. Okay? 1, the equation must be set equal to 0. All right? 2, once it is, we need to identify those numbers appropriately. The A value is 3, the B value is 4, the C value is -5. Okay? If you see a minus sign, we're going to treat that minus like a negative. All right? Okay, so let's look at the second one. Is the second equation set equal to 0? No. It is not. What would need to move? That 5x would need to come over, and if it comes over, it becomes what? Thank you. That becomes -5x. Okay, so is there another just x term to combine it with? There is not. We've got x squared. We have a 3. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to rewrite this -5x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0. We're going to put it back in the appropriate order. Okay? The 5x came over, became negative. Is everybody okay with that? Okay? So here it is. What's the value of A? -5. Value of B? B? -5. And C? +3. Okay? We just need to know where to look to get these numbers. Okay? Is everybody okay with that? A is -5, B is also -5, pure coincidence. C is a value of 3. Any questions thus far? All right, look at this last one. Okay? What do you notice about the last one? It's moved around a little bit, isn't it? Okay? Now, that's fine. If you want to put it back in order, that's fine. Is it set equal to 0? Yes. It is set equal to 0. So, in one regard, it's kind of ready to go. And if you know where to look, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Can you guys tell me what the value of A is? Which one of those is your A value? 2. Good. Guys, be careful about that because a lot of the times, most of the time, that squared term is first. It's not first this time. But if you know where to look, you're going to know that the A value is 2. What's the B value? 3. And the C value? -1. It is set equal to 0, so we're good to go. Like I said, if you want to rearrange this, if you feel better about writing it 2x squared plus 3x minus 1 equals 0, That's fine. If you're better with that, do it. But if you look at that and you say, you know what? I know where the A, B, and the C are. No big deal. It's set equal to 0. I know where to look. We're good. Okay? But guys, this is a crucial step in this process. If we cannot identify A, B, and C correctly, we're in trouble. Okay? We good? All right. Any questions thus far? Okay. Jot that down. There's the quadratic formula. This should not be the first time you've ever seen this. Hopefully not. That is the quadratic formula. Okay? X equals, that is a negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c. All that is over 2 times a. Jot that formula down. We need to know this formula. I will be providing it, but just because you're going to use it a little bit here, I think you will get to know it. All right? All right, does everybody have that down? Everybody got it? Before I go to the next slide? Okay, there's your quadratic formula. Guys, this always works. This thing, we can keep it in our back pocket. This thing always works, okay? It looks a little tedious. It looks a little scary, but we're going to work through it. It's going to be fine. Okay, here we go. Oops. Move that over just a smidge there. There we go. Snack time. All right. Is my equation set equal to 0? It is. Guys, the first thing you look for. That is set equal to 0. It's in a good order. We are ready to identify A, B, and C. What's the value of A? 1. Thank you. Guys, you have a 1 right there. You have a positive 1 right there. What is the value of B? Say again? Thank you. -5. And what is the value of C? -14. Okay? All right, we're going to take A, B, and C, and I'm going to plug all that into the formula. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to go X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Shove it in there. And I would always encourage you, if you replace a variable with anything, I would put it in parentheses. I think it's just going to help with the organization of your work. Take your A, B, and C, shove it into the formula. And really at this point, guys, this just becomes a matter of perseverance, really. Can we persevere through simplifying this and avoiding the careless mistake, okay? So right here, what happens to minus a negative? Minus a -5 becomes +5. So that is a +5 right there. Plus or minus. What is -5 squared? What's -5 times -5? Positive 25. Guys, right there, that term will always be positive. Because you're squaring that term, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, it's going to be positive. Now, you see all this right here that I'm putting in yellow? Those three things must be multiplied together first. Okay? They must be multiplied together first. And it doesn't matter what order you multiply them in. What is negative 4 times 1? Negative 4. And that negative 4 times negative 14 is positive 56. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And that negative 4 times negative 14 is positive 56. Okay? Those three things must be multiplied together. And the reason I say that is there are a lot of students that will square the negative 5 and get 25, and then they want to subtract 4. Guys, order of operations, we have to multiply before we can subtract. You have to multiply those three things together. A lot of mistakes happen right there. Is everybody okay with where those two numbers came from? Okay, then there on the bottom, what's 2 times 1? 2? Got a 2. Okay? Okay. All right, let's continue to simplify here. 5 plus or minus square root 25 plus 56 is 81. All over 2. Most mistakes, a lot of mistakes happen under the radical, so be very careful under that radical. Make sure that we try to get that simplified correctly, all right? There's lots of little places underneath that radical that can trip us up, little careless mistakes. Now, 81. Is 81 a perfect square number? Can I take the square root of 81? What is it? 9. So here we go. 5 plus or minus 9 over 2. If that is a perfect square, take the square root of it. The square root of 81 is 9. Got it. Everybody okay so far? Okay. Here's where we're going to figure the two answers. Because remember, this is quadratic, degree 2. The degree tells us how many solutions we're looking for. We're looking for 2 solutions. This is where the plus minus comes in. The first one we're going to figure is we're going to go, and I'll do it in yellow, 5 plus 9 over 2. What is 5 plus 9?
14.
That is 14 over 2, which is what? What's 14 divided by 2? 7. There's one answer. The other one we have to look at is 5 minus 9 over 2. Thank you. Guys, what is 5 minus 9? 5 minus 9 is negative 4 over 2, which is what? What's negative 4 divided by 2? Negative 2. There's our other answer. That's where that plus minus comes in. That plus minus symbol is what's going to provide the two answers. Okay? So 5 plus 9, 14 over 2 is 7. 5 minus 9, negative 4 divided by 2, negative 2. Monster up. Tedious process, I know. But can we persevere? Guys, there were not any calculations there that I don't think would be considered overwhelming. It's just a lot of little things that we've got to kind of keep up with. Okay? Any questions about the first one? So far, so good? Wonderful. Can I go to the next slide? Let's go to the next one. Again, got your quadratic formula up there on the left. Don't need to necessarily jot that down. Go ahead and jot that equation down. If we are going to solve this by quadratic formula, what am I going to have to do first? Move the 4. Because to solve a quadratic by quadratic formula, we've got to set it equal to 0. So this 4 has got to come over, and it will become negative. What are you going to combine it with? Okay, so here we go. 4x squared plus 8x, 7 minus 4, positive 3. So 4x squared plus 8x plus 3 equals 0. Get it set equal to 0 first, which we had some practice with that the other day. Okay, what's the value of A?
4.
Good, 4. B? 8, good. And C?
3.
Perfect. Have to be able to identify those correctly. Okay, once you identify A, B, and C, let's shove all that junk into the formula. So we're going to go x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Lots of crap, right? Let's take all that junk, let's shove it into the formula. I mean, that's the nice thing about formulas is if we know what to plug in, we just shove it in there and then we just go simplify this thing. All right. Okay, here we go. X equals, that is a negative 8. We didn't have two negatives there, so that is a negative 8. Guys, what's 8 squared? 8 squared, 64. 8 squared is 64. All right, be careful right here. These three need to be multiplied together. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. And negative 16 times 3 is negative 48. Make sure you multiply those three things together. First, on the bottom, 2 times 4, 8. I would also caution you about trying to shove all this into a calculator at once. I'd be very careful about doing that. Okay, the Decimal Scientific Calculator would probably handle it pretty good, but if you've got one of these handheld calculators or your phone, it's kind of tough. You got to be careful. Okay, all right, here we go. Negative 8 plus or minus square root. What is 64 minus 48? The plus or minus means we're going to consider a positive and a negative of this number that we're going to get right here. So hang on to that thought. Keep that plus minus there. It's just it's a plus and a minus sign. 16, good. 64 minus 48 is 16, all over 8. Is 16 a perfect square number? Yes. What is the square root of 16? 4. So right here, we're going to go x equals negative 8 plus or minus 4 over 8. If that number under the radical is a perfect square, take the square root of it. Square root of 16 is 4. Here's where the plus and minus comes in. The first one we're going to consider, x equals negative 8 plus 4 over 8. Negative 8 plus 4 over 8. What's negative 8 plus 4? Negative 4. And what's negative 4 divided by 8? What's negative 4 over 8 reduced to? What could you divide both those numbers by? 4. So that would be a negative 1 over, what's 8 divided by 4? There's one answer right there, negative 1/2. And then we've also got to consider negative 8 minus 4 over 8. Negative 8 minus 4 over 8. What's negative 8 minus 4? Negative 12. Wonderful. And what is negative 12 over 8 reduced to? What could you divide both those by? 4. Which would be negative 3 over 2. There's your two answers. Negative 1/2 and negative 3 over 2. Be swift. Okay? Quadratic formula always works. It's a little tedious. But if you can identify A, B, and C correctly and shove it into that formula, it's just a matter of just doing some arithmetic and getting some simplification done. Okay? All right? Okay, one more. Let's do one more here. First question. Is the equation set equal to 0?
No.
It is not. Who's moving?
X.
Negative x squared, right? So when this negative x squared comes over, it's going to become what? Positive x squared. So 8x squared plus 1x squared is how many x squareds? 8x squared plus 1 more x squared. 9x squareds. So 8x squared plus 1x squared, 9x squared, plus 4x minus 16 equals 0. Solve by quadratic formula, solve by factoring, equation must be set equal to 0 first. We got it. We're set equal to 0. What's the value of A? 9. B? 4. Good. C? That is a negative 16. There you go. And as I mentioned, if we cannot identify A, B, and C correctly, we might as well not even go on because it's going to be off. Okay, so we've got to have a certain amount of certainty here that we've got the right A, B, and C, and I believe we do. Okay, so here we go. Let's shove it into the formula. X equals negative B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Shove it in there. Shove it in there, and let's start simplifying. Okay? So right here, whoops, negative 4 plus or minus square root. What is 4 squared? Thank you. 16. All right, now right here, you've got some larger numbers, and I think I've got a little cheat sheet here. Negative 4 times 9 times negative 16 should work out to a positive 576. And all that's over 18. So I'm going to trust that you'll be able to grab a calculator. You would be able to get those three things multiplied. Negative 4 times 9 times negative 16, positive 576. Okay? Negative 4 plus or minus 16 and 576 should be, yep, 592. That's a brutal 9, isn't it? 592. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, 592 is not a perfect square. Okay? If we don't have a perfect square, do you guys remember breaking the radicals down? Like 20 became 4 and 5, and you had to take the square root of 4 and make it 2 root 5. We've got to kind of do that process here. Okay? So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to kind of cut to the chase here a little bit. This 592 breaks up into those two things right there, root 16 and root 37. And what's the square root of 16? Square root of 16 is? 4. So the square root of 592 reduces to 4 root 37. So right here, I'm going to go x equals negative 4 plus or minus 4 root 37 over 18. But if we have a radical that's not a perfect square, we've got to break that radical up if we can. We've got to simplify it, which we were able to do. Now, the nice thing about this right here is we're pretty much done. The only other thing that we can do right here, you see those three numbers right there? 4, 4, and 18. What could you divide all three of those by? 2. Let's divide all those by 2. Negative 2 plus or minus 2 root 37 over 9. And that's it. These problems are actually a little bit easier when you can't take the square root of a number. When you take the square root of a number, it actually causes you a little bit more simplification work, okay? But if that's all I need to do, guys, I'm done. I can't do anything else with that radical. I can reduce all three of those other numbers, but I can't do anything with that radical, so we're just going to leave it. The plus or minus provides two answers for me. Negative 2 plus root 2 root 37 over 9, and negative 2 minus 2 root 37 over 9. There are technically two answers there. So there's actually less work to be done when the radical is not a perfect square number, which is kind of nice. Okay? So we would leave that right there. Okay? Now, I think there's going to be one on your assignment to where the radical is not going to be a perfect square and you can't break it down. And if that's the case, guys, just leave it. Okay? Just leave it. Here, let me show you this real quick. Let's say we got this. Oh. See that right there? Let's say we got that. Let's say we went through the whole process. You got down to that right there. Okay? Is 10 a perfect square? It's not. Okay? Guys, you can't do anything with 10. Can't do anything with it. There's no perfect square number that goes into it. I can't break 10 down. If that's the case, you look at that and you go, I can't do anything else. That would be your answer. Done. Okay? If the number under the radical is not a perfect square and you can't do anything with it, you can't break it down, can't do anything, you leave it and you are done. Okay? So, which is kind of nice. All right? There it is. 2 to 16 even. 2 to 16 even. I do believe it is loaded in Canvas. Try not to let the start stop you. Guys, try to get a little bit accomplished today. Dive in there. Get through a few of these. Okay? Start working with it. I appreciate your attentiveness. Any questions thus far?